What's going on, everyone? So the San Antonio Spurs played their first game against Oklahoma City for the preseason and were without several key players. They were without Devin Vassell, who he won't even be reevaluated till November. So still quite some time, still at least a month away. Not necessarily from him returning, just from him getting evaluated. All right, so that's something to keep in mind there. And then they were without Chris Paul as well as Victor Wembanyama, as their big key guys that were out. And it was nice. You still got to see several of the other guys, Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes. There weren't really any major standouts in my opinion. I wasn't super sold on anybody outside of guys like Julian Champagnie, right? He actually had a very solid outing, looked very good for the San Antonio Spurs. He was a guy that got the nod starting. He's a guy that really has that potential. He's still very young, got good size, good length. He gave you 22 points on 7 of 16 shooting, 6 of 13 from the field, gave you a steal. Again, 7 rebounds, massive. But outside of that, Stephon Castle, he had some nice moments. Obviously kind of coming into his own. Wesley, you had several guys that had some nice little moments, and showed little contributions in a multitude of ways, right? But nobody, in my opinion, outside of Champagnie was like, oh, these guys look great. But, again, you didn't have Chris Paul, and you didn't have Victor Wembanyama. Chris Paul is going to make things so much easier for the entirety of this team, for the entirety of this roster. To have a true playmaker that's going to make sure guys are in the right position, are slotted in the right places, that is going to run and orchestrate the offense, that's going to get you the ball right in your shooting pocket, going to make things as easy and simple as possible out on the basketball court. He's going to do wonders for a lot of those players. A lot of these players, not just in Summer League, but also throughout the actual season. And then Victor Wembanyama, of course. Wemby is their best player. I've said before, I think that there was a genuine argument that he was a top 15 player in the league last year as a rookie. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes real strides and is in the top 10. I think Chris Paul is going to make things incredibly easy for Victor. I think the best thing that could have happened for Victor Wembanyama was getting Chris Paul, because Chris Paul is always going to find Wemby. Right? Last season, there was a lot of moments, like game by game. It wasn't just like outlier moments. It was regularly where Wemby would be having clear established position, or would have the mismatch, or at times even just like wide open, and guys would just completely look off him or just not recognize it. Who's always going to recognize it? Chris Paul. Who's always going to make the right read? Chris Paul. Who's going to see Wemby with a mismatch or established position and get him the basketball? Chris Paul. Right? I think Chris Paul is probably going to get 5 assists a game just on, pick and roll and throwing lobs to Wemby. Wemby will probably get 10 points a game just because of Chris Paul. I wouldn't be shocked if Wemby is a 27 to 30 point a game scorer. He's 20 last season, and he didn't really have a playmaker at all. Now he has one of the greatest playmakers ever. I just think Wemby's really going to take some strides. And then you have the natural growth, natural progression of him as a player going into year 2. But when are we going to see Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama? Well, you're lucky. We're going to get to see him later today against the Orlando Magic. So the San Antonio Spurs take on the Orlando Magic for their second preseason game. Now, you're probably not going to get a huge, heavy dose of Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama, especially Chris Paul at his age, right? His injury history. You want to limit him as well as Wemby. You don't want to risk either of these two kind of getting hurt before the season begins, especially with Devin Vassell out. But you do got to get him some reps. You do got to get him some action. You got to get him some time. So it makes sense to kind of, let him get 15 minutes, whatever. All right, 15, 20 minutes, if that. I don't even know if I'd play them both that much, but just kind of give them some opportunities out there on the basketball court. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really do. I think the Spurs they're going to be one of those teams that you have to beat. Right? Like last year, it was a lot of circular calendar, that's a dub. Right? I mean, they only won 22 games last year. They were a free win in almost every way of the sense, right? And this year, I think that changes. Now, I don't think the Spurs are a contender or, winning the championship or anything like that, but I do think that they're a team that you're not going to be able to just walk over. I don't think that they're a team that you're just going to dominate and you don't really have to worry about. I think, again, you're going to have to beat the Spurs. You're going to have to show up, you're going to have to bring your A game. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Spurs, snuck into a play-in, and you get into the play-in, you never know. Couple hot games, you only got to win. If you're the 9th or 10th seed, you just got to win 2 straight games. Get hot, things kind of come together. All of a sudden, you're in the playoffs. Right? If you can squeeze into that 8th seed, 7th seed, then you only have to win 1 game. Right? You got 2 tries to win 1. I think that they can win 1 game against pretty much anybody. Right? So again, I wouldn't be shocked if they squeezed into the playoffs, but this in many ways is a development year, right? This isn't a year of like, hey, we're trying to win an NBA championship this year. Obviously, they want to win. Obviously, they want to win as many games as possible, and both Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama are going to be huge components in their success this year, but it's more so about just continuing to grow, show what Victor would look like alongside a real playmaker, help grow, develop guys like Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, even Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, like all of these guys, I think are really going to benefit from Chris Paul, as well as Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul is the guy that kind of gets all the attention, gets talked about a lot, but Harrison Barnes deserves love too, because he's a guy that, again, veteran, always has played his role, has been one of the, premier 3-and-D guys, and a guy that was a huge component, huge piece in the Warriors' first championship, right? Like, his departure was because of Kevin Durant. Otherwise, who knows how long he would have been on the Warriors if he still is on the Warriors, right? Like, there's a lot of questions about that. But, he's a guy that also is going to be able to help grow and develop these young guys and gives you a versatile wing that can play defense, knock down the 3 ball. He's not going to take away from what you're trying to do. He's not a guy that's going to need the basketball and needs 15 attempts per game or anything like that. He still can let Vassell be Vassell, still let Wemby be Wemby. Right? You go down the list, he's not going to take away. So you got the development guys, you got the 2 guys that are going to be able to come in and have a real impact on this team, on this roster, which is very exciting. And now I do think that the Spurs are going to be a force, but it really does start with today, right? Building good habits, kind of, again, it's preseason. I'm not saying that they're going to look fantastic right out the gate, but it starts today because we're finally going to get to see them on the court. They're going to start to build, start getting reps and building those habits and getting a feel for each other on the court. I can't replicate actual NBA action. You can run scrimmages, you can, work out at your local Y, you can do whatever you want. You're never going to replicate actual, hey, we want to go out and beat this team. Preseason or not, these guys are competitors. Yes, it's not the end of the world if you lose. It's not a regular season game. Things are in perspective, but teams are still trying to compete. The only reason that they're not actively trying to win heavily is because they're only playing, all these teams, they're only playing their stars, 15 minutes a game. If they were playing the full game, best believe that you would get that competition where everyone's trying to win. Right? But when you're only going to get 15 minutes, right, you're just trying to be as productive and efficient as possible in that 15-minute period. But, with the Spurs, I think Chris Paul and Wemby, I think that duo, that connection is going to be special. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. Obviously, got to see how much Chris Paul plays this year. How many games can he stay healthy and play on the basketball court? How many minutes, if you're Pop, do you play him? Are you really playing him 30-plus minutes a game? I mean, ideally, you'd love to do that. Ideally, you'd love to kind of just let him almost always be on the basketball court, right? Especially because your backup point guard depth isn't fantastic. Trey Jones isn't bad. Stephon Castle has shown that he can make some plays and stuff, but not like neither of those guys are guys that you're looking to lead you to the playoffs or anything like that, right? So curious to see how much does Chris Paul actually play this year, how many games, how many minutes. Once he's in the game, yeah, he's going to be a huge role. But I do like the idea of Chris Paul being able to get established, set up, put guys in proper position to succeed. I think Wemby is going to get 8 to 10 extra points a game than what he was getting last year, just simply on Chris Paul recognizing things that no one else was able to recognize last year, on just being able to run the basic pick and roll. I mean, he's a mismatch in that. You could probably run the pick and roll 20 times a game and give you 40 points. Like, it's one of those things that I think that's going to be just brutal, right? Also, what kind of just natural growth and progression does Victor Wembanyama take? I think him playing in France and making it to the gold medal game against Team USA, I think was incredible experience for him. I think you're going to have just that year 2 growth, that year 2 kind of stride. And like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if he's arguably top 10, maybe even top 7 in the league this year. I think he wins Defensive Player of the Year. As long as he plays 65 games, I think he's a lock for Defensive Player of the Year. And then if he gives you, 25 to 30 points per game, I mean, he might even be in the MVP conversations at that point. I wouldn't be shocked if Wemby, I don't know if necessarily Wemby will win it, because, usually it goes to a team that just has a better record, right? Like, if Dallas, for example, and Luka's having a season and they're the 3 seed, they're going to give it to Luka, even if Wemby is better, right? They're going to give it to Luka just because they have the better record, right? So to me, though, even if he's just in the conversation, that is huge. Year 2, you're in the MVP conversations, right? And again, if he's giving you 25 to 30 and the best defensive player in the league, guess what? He needs to be in those conversations. He needs to be a potential candidate. You got to at least, talk about him. Doesn't mean he has to necessarily win it, but he's at least got to be in the conversation. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that the Spurs are going to be very good this year? You excited for the first outing of Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama? Do you think, we'll see. We'll see how it progresses, see how it develops. I really want to see in the regular season. How you feel, whatever your thoughts are. I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.